Testing. There we go. Good evening and welcome to the September 8th, 2025 meeting of the Menlo Park Planning Commission. I am Chair Andrew Eric, and I thank you for joining us this evening, either remotely or here in council chambers. Established by state law, our city's Planning Commission is composed of 7 volunteer residents of Menlo Park, appointed to 4-year terms by the City Council. Our Planning Commission is not a policy setting body, that's the City Council. We are a policy implementing body. We review development proposals for compliance with our city's general plan and zoning ordinance, which can both be found on the city's website. The Commission also reviews city-initiated land use planning projects, such as general plan updates and zoning ordinance amendments. The Commission reviews development proposals requiring a use permit, architectural control, a variance, minor subdivision, as well as the environmental reviews associated with those projects. When applicable, the Commission reviews below market rate or BMR housing agreements associated with these applications. The Commission is the final decision-making body for these applications unless appealed to the City Council. The Commission also serves as the recommending body to the City Council for major subdivisions, rezoning, conditional development permits, zoning ordinance amendments, general plan amendments, and environmental reviews associated with those projects. If applicable, the Planning Commission reviews and makes recommendations on BMR agreements associated with these projects. Staff in our city's planning division are responsible for processing development applications, as well as for both implementing and amending the general plan, zoning ordinances, and related policies in order to further the goals of the city. Staff is also responsible for the agenda of regular Planning Commission meetings and for prioritizing what and when agenda items or development applications come before the Planning Commission. Planning Commissioners do not have any ability to place items on the agenda for these meetings. We encourage your active participation, whether you are an applicant or interested member of the public, and there will be an opportunity to speak publicly for each specific agenda item, as well as for general public comment. With that, I will call the roll. Commissioner Baruzzi.
Present.
Commissioner Doe.
Here.
Commissioner Farrick.
Here.
Commissioner Schindler.
Here.
Commissioner Sillen. Here. Vice Chair Silverstein.
Present.
I am Chair Eric. I am also present. So we have 7 commissioners in chambers, which is a quorum. The next item on our agenda is reports and announcements. Ms. Sandmeyer, are there any staff reports or announcements this evening?
Yes, good evening, Chair Eric and Commissioners. So tomorrow there will be a study session at City Council on proposed strategies for the city's anti-displacement plan. That concludes my updates, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do any commissioners have any questions about those announcements? Okay, thank you, Ms. Sandmeyer. Do commissioners have any reports or announcements of their own? Yes, Commissioner Doe.
Thanks, Chair. Not necessarily a report announcement, but just a heads up that due to limited childcare, I'll need to leave at 8:30, so I'll sneak out then rather than interrupt the flow of the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Doe. I do have a quick report that I would like to give. Over the past few weeks, Vice Chair Silverstein and I have been in email communication with city staff regarding several process points and clarifying a few things related to the process of these meetings. And I would like to report out to my fellow commissioners and to the public on 2 quick points that have been clarified. The first, which has been added to the introduction to these meetings, is that planning commissioners do not have any ability to place or request items be placed on the agenda. So despite the fact that this gavel is here, we do not have that ability. That is an ability reserved to staff. Staff determines what is on the agenda. The second point is that Vice Chair Silverstein requested if the language for item G could be changed. Item G in our meetings is usually is informational items. The request was to broaden this language to take into account or make possible discussions of broader planning commission items Staff clarified that that section is meant simply as a courtesy and mostly to discuss the meeting upcoming, and that language will stay as it is for now. With that, we will move to item D, the public comment portion of our agenda. Under public comment, the public may address the commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. You are not required to provide your name, district, or city of residence, but it is helpful. The commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore, the commission cannot respond to non-agenda items brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Please know that if you are here tonight to comment on one of our agenda items, you will have a chance to speak when we get to that item in the agenda. So to learn how to participate, I am going to turn to our clerk this evening, Ms. Roy, to explain how you can participate and then to begin our public comment period.
Thank you, Chair Eric, commissioners and members of the public. Monica Roy, planning technician. At this time, we are opening public comment period for items that are not listed on the agenda. If you are in the council chamber and like to speak, please fill out a comment card and hand it to me. If you are attending virtually via Zoom, please click the raised hand button. And if you are calling by phone, please press *9 on your keypad. At this point, I don't have any hand raised and any comment cards, but if you would like, we can wait for some time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Roy. I'm assuming we do not have any requests to speak. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair, we don't have any comments or hand raised.
Okay. In that case, I will close the public comment portion of our agenda and move us to the consent calendar. Tonight, there are 2 items on the consent calendar, approval of minutes from the June 23rd meeting, as well as from the August 11th meeting. We are going to take public comment on the consent calendar. Ms. Roy, if you could please provide instructions regarding public comment on this agenda item and open the public comment period for the consent calendar.
Thank you, Chair. So once again, we are opening the public comment for the consent calendar items listed on the agenda. If you are in the council chamber and like to speak, please fill out a comment card and hand it to me. If you are attending virtually via Zoom, please click raised hand button. And if you are calling by phone, please press *9 on your keypad. At this point, I don't have any hand raised or comment cards, and we can wait for a few moments.
Okay. Assuming that we do not have any requests to speak, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment period on the consent calendar. I am going to pull item E1 from the consent calendar. Are there any commissioners who would also like to pull item E2? Okay. In that case, I would first request a motion on the consent calendar minus the items that have been pulled. So that's effectively item E2.
I move that we approve item E2.
Second.
Thank you very much. Okay, seeing no further requests to speak, I'm going to call the vote on the consent calendar, item E2. Commissioner Baruzzi,
Yes.
Commissioner Doe,
Yes.
Commissioner Farrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Schindler,
Yes.
Commissioner Sillen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverstein.
Abstain.
I am a yes. That is 6 yes votes in favor with 1 abstention. Item E2 passes. So now to return to item E1, and not to be presumptive, but since I pulled the item, I will just note that I've requested that the approval of these minutes be continued, I think, 2 times to this meeting. The reason I asked them to be continued was because they pertained to a discussion that the commission had and a question that was posed to staff about the language of item G on the agendas. As I stated in my report a few minutes ago, the answer to that question has been given. So I am comfortable moving forward and approving these minutes. Do any other commissioners have comments or questions regarding item E1? Vice Chair Silverstein.
Just as a point of clarification, the discussion during item G in the meeting in question was a question to staff about a potential, well, there were 2 questions. One was about a potential future item that may or may not come on the agenda in the future, which was not able to be answered by staff. And then the second was a clarifying question about an item that was to come before Planning Commission, just wanting a little more context or information. And that similarly was unable to be answered by staff. And through the various conversations that we had, it was confirmed that staff will be unable to answer those follow-up questions. And so we'll need to just receive the agenda items as they come. As such, I'm happy to move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Commissioner Doe.
Second.
Okay, seeing no comments, I will call the vote on item E1. Commissioner Baruzzi,
Yes.
Commissioner Doe,
Yes.
Commissioner Farrick,
Abstain.
Commissioner Schindler,
Yes.
Commissioner Sillen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverstein.
Yes.
I am also a yes. That is 6 votes in favor with 1 abstention. That item passes. Okay, we will now move on to the public hearing portion of our agenda. And first to item F1, the first public hearing item. This agenda item is regarding a use permit at 1346 Hoover Street. At this public hearing, the commission may consider and adopt a resolution to approve a use permit to remodel and add first and second story additions to an existing non-conforming single-family residence with a basement located on a substandard lot with regard to lot width and area in the R3 apartment zoning district. The proposal also includes a use permit request for the proposed work to exceed 50% of the replacement value of the existing non-conforming structure over a 12-month period. The proposal would exceed 50% of the existing floor area and is considered equivalent to a new structure. Additionally, the proposal includes use permit requests for additions and remodeling to an existing detached non-conforming garage, which would exceed 50% of the replacement value of the non-conforming structure over a 12-month period, and for a new accessory dwelling unit, or ADU, above the existing detached garage, which would exceed the maximum height for a detached ADU. Determine this action is categorically exempt under CEQA guidelines, section 15303's class 3 exemption for new construction or conversion of small structures. I believe the project planner for this item is Ms. Sandmeyer. Ms. Sandmeyer, are there any updates to the staff report?
Yes, I have 2 updates. There's a minor error on the data table where the right side setback is shaded, and the shading is incorrect since that denotes a substandard or non-conforming condition. However, the numbers are correct. It's just the shading that's an error. And after publication of the staff report, we received an additional email from a neighbor with concerns about the use permit requests. That email was sent to the Planning Commission, and we've also included copies at the back table. And that concludes my updates.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Sandmeyer. I understand we have several members of the applicant team who are here in person, and they are not planning on making a presentation. In which case, we will move to public comment on this item. But before we do any commissioners have any clarifying questions for staff or for the applicant? Okay. Seeing none, Ms. Roy, could you please provide instructions regarding public comment and start the comment period for item F1?
Thank you, Chair. So once again, we are opening the public comment for this item. If you are attending virtually, please click the raised hand button. If you are calling us by phone, please press *9 on your keypad. And if you are in the council chamber and like to speak, please fill out a comment card and hand it to me. At this point, I have 3 comment cards with me. If you like, Chair, we can begin the processing of hearing the comments.
Please, thank you.
So our first speaker is Sandra Bardas, pardon me. So you are welcome to go to the podium and please give me some moments so that I can set up your timer and turn on your speaker. I'll sign up.
While the clerk is working, if I could ask the public commenter to please move the microphone close to your mouth so that we and the public could hear you. Thank you.
You can begin speaking now.
Planning Commission. As you can see from this proposal, this is a massive project covering a substantial portion of the land area with substantial intrusion into the second-story space. What is most concerning is this project is also asking for variances on a substandard lot that is a lot less than 7,000 square feet, already in a district that is has a high density to it, being in an R3 downtown area district. I feel that the commission should not approve these variances because it sets an unfortunate precedent. As you well are aware, there are several very large projects that are coming forth in the town, and having the Planning Commission approve variances at this time would set a very unfortunate precedent. I'm also concerned about the cost of construction that is put into the proposal of $200 per square foot. I had my family home burnt down in the Palisades fire. I can assure you that if I could rebuild my home for $200 a square foot, it would be an easy task for me to do. And finally, I'd like to point out that the same owners have a project on the same street at the other end of the street at 1220 Hoover Street. And I'm afraid that having 2 large construction projects on each end of the street would be very obstructive, especially to the fire department. Previously, when we've had constructions on our street, the developer has put into place mitigation standards so the street would not be very much impacted. So my main takeaway point is that please do not approve these variances in a downtown R3 zoning regulation area because it sets an unfortunate precedent and does involve in changing the nature of our tiny 1-block street. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for your comment.
So our next speaker is Scott Plum. If you'd like, you can go up to the podium and just wait for a few minutes till I set up your timer. You can begin speaking now.
Yeah, thanks for taking my comments tonight. So I'm a resident that's adjacent to 1346 Hoover, 677 Valparaiso. So I share their backyard fence as my side yard fence, or east side of their lot. I've been a homeowner there for 20 years. I'm aware that when we moved in, there was no home at 1342 Hoover either. I was aware that there was always a risk that construction would go up there, that this home, which was single story, would eventually turn over and turn into a second story home. So I'm fully prepared for that outcome. So my point here tonight is not to argue against the development or against adding a second story, but I would ask that it's done without the approved variances. And in particular, I'm really upset about the proposal for the ADU going up on the second story on the garage. It's already just about 18 inches or so. I think of the exact numbers, but from my fence. I do have a couple pictures I would love to, if I can approach to circulate. I'm sorry, it's only one copy, but it kind of shows the visual of that. Can I bring that up? One is a view from my backyard.
Sorry, just, I apologize. I'm going to ask staff for how we should handle.
You can accept the photos, but then we have to put them in the back so the public has access to them as well.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, if we could pause the timer, please. And then, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
if you could give us the pictures. Thank you. I just want to make sure we're being fair to everyone.
The other thing to say is, I'm aware we have a shortage of housing in Menlo Park, so I know there is a need for any housing and that ADUs are a premium. This is not an appropriate lot for ADUs, or at least if it's going to be built, I would ask it's built with a footprint where it does at least adhere to the 10-foot setback, which is requested from the same planning commission when a prior developer had planned to put, or the actual prior owner had planned to build that out before, and the planning commission requested that that be set back by 10 feet with a cantilever. Right now, like my fence is like 4 feet from my home, and this garage unit that they want to build on top of is like 2 feet from there. So we're really close to where this is going to go up. And you can see from the picture just how it's going to be completely intrusive into our yard. So I'm not as opposed to rebuilding the garage, even though it is non-conforming now. If it was just a single-story garage in that same place, I could live with that. It's the second-story ADU that seems egregious to me. So I just wanted to make that note for the record. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you, Chair. And our next speaker is Gina Milani. If you like, you can go up to the podium and please wait for a few moments so that I can start your timer. Thank you.
Now, good evening, commissioners. My name is Gina Milani, and my family owned 1346 Hoover Street for more than 80 years. This home wasn't just a piece of property to us, it was stability, history, a part of how we cared for each other across generations. In 2013, we began exploring how I might retire at 1346 Hoover Street by building an ADU on top of the existing garage. The idea was simple: keep the home as income property, build a modest unit for myself, and make it financially possible to age in place in a town I grew up in. Despite our best efforts, the process was punishing. We faced obstacle after obstacle: the tree, the setbacks, the parking requirements. We bent over backwards to meet every condition, spending more than $30,000 in the process. Ultimately, the only plan that was approved was one we could not afford to build. All I wanted to do was add an ADU above the existing garage, not bulldoze the house or change the character of the neighborhood. That's why I'm here tonight, urging you not to approve further variances for a professional developer on this same property. The Planning Commission minutes from December 10th, 2018 show exactly what was granted: a variance to reduce the side setback from 10 feet to 5 feet, justified because of the substandard lot and the heritage tree, which is no longer there, I might add. It was argued that this was needed in order to provide parking and preserve the tree. That tree is now gone, and here's the thing: that same tree was used as a roadblock when I tried to build my modest ADU. We had it trimmed, it was not sick. It was old and messy, yet it became part of the rationale for why I couldn't build, while today it's being used as part of the rationale why a developer can build. So the commission also noted in those minutes that the variance would not be applicable generally to other properties because of the unique conditions of the site. That may be technically true, but for me, as a longtime resident trying to remain in my family home, the unique conditions translated to a dead end. It feels deeply unfair that a variance could not be found to help a resident age in place, but now that same lot is considered worthy of accommodation for a developer whose primary goal is profit. I respect the difficult role you play in balancing property rights with more housing need and neighborhood character, but I ask you to weigh fairness too. Please do not give more latitude to a developer than was shown to my family, who devoted their lives and a considerable amount of money to trying to stay in Menlo Park. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you for your comment.
At this point, I have 2 hands raised, so I can invite them to join us.
Please go ahead.
So our first speaker virtually attending would be Valerie Fredricksons. I I am giving the permission to talk.
Okay. Can I start now?
We can hear you.
Yes,
Please
you
go
can
ahead.
start.
Okay. Thanks for letting me speak. I'm the long-term landlord at 1350 Hoover. I have a beautiful apartment building right next door to the little house. I have long-term tenants, and I'm not at all somebody who doesn't care about my tenants. I've made my building beautiful. The garden's beautiful. We have a huge fountain that provides clean water 24 hours a day to all the pollinators, birds, and animals in the neighborhood. And I've planted 5 gorgeous trees on the property. In fact, I was complimented by the person who's in charge of making the decision in Menlo Park if trees can come down. We did take down the oak tree, and that was at the request, the very energetic request of the developer who owns that little house. I'm asking you to look at the plans and to make some modifications. If the house were built as is, it would take away all of the sun from my 4 long-term tenants who live in the property. And we all know that sunlight is important for mental health. I've got a wide range of tenants. I've got a woman who's African American, who's a professor at Stanford. She's been there for more than 10 years. I have a long-term software engineer with autism who's planning on living there for the rest of his life because he feels so comfortable, like it's his home. And I have a long-term family, which are recent Jewish refugees from Russia, and they've been there about 2 years now, and they've got a long-term commitment to live there. And I'm paying them, or I'm doing a big discounted rent so that they can live there with their both their grandparents and the little girl. So I've got really good, very long-term tenants in all 4 units. And if the plan goes through as is, they will lose all of their sun, all of their living room window sun, their dining room sun, the sun off of our patio, and 4 out of 5 of my trees will die because they won't have any sun. I think the design of the property is beautiful, but I have a couple of suggestions for it. One, I'd like to see the second level be built towards the back of the house, not the front of the house. The way it's built right now, it's going to give sun to the developer's backyard, but it'll take away all of our sun. I'd also like the second story to be made more narrow so that the sun, again, won't be blocked. And thirdly, I'd like to have the ceilings reduced. Instead of having the downstairs be 11 feet tall and the upstairs be 9 feet tall, I'd like to see them both raised to 8 feet tall, which is what I have in my building. And these kinds of modifications would allow me to continue to provide sunlight and a beautiful environment for my 4 long-term tenants and to keep my house value.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you, Chair. Our next speaker is Kevin Dawkins, who is attending virtually as well. So, Kevin, you may speak now, and I'm setting up your timer.
Perfect. Can you all hear me?
Yes, you can.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Kevin Dawkins. My wife, our 1-year-old, and I live over at 1340 Hoover Street, which is right next door. My 1-year-old's bedtime coincided with this meeting, which is why I'm calling in remote. So I would have been there in person if I could. We are excited to see development on Hoover, and I agree that the design of the property is beautiful and it will make the street look even more lovely. We're concerned about a few things. We went back and looked at some of the conversation that happened around the time that our homes were built at 1340 and the home behind us, Hoover Street. Dirt and dust during construction, noise. As I said, we have a 1-year-old and her bedroom faces that. So I'd be interested to hear if the developers have any plans for that and traffic. We have a lot of visitors, as you can imagine. As we have a 1-year-old, my parents come, we have babysitters. And so we utilize parking on Hoover Street as a way of welcoming people into our home. Finally, I echo some of the concerns that my fellow neighbors have about the 2-story ADU, blocking light for people, being above that garage, which is right on the property line. And I would just be interested to hear if the developers have any ideas around that to just make sure that everyone has a really comfortable and lovely home. I know that the first few were managed by the builder when they built our house. And so, yeah, like I'd be curious to know if they had any comments on that. Thank you very much. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any more comment cards or hand raised at this moment. So if you'd like, we can wait a few more moments or we can close the comment session for now.
Thank you. I think the public comment period has been open for a bit now, so I'm comfortable closing it at this point and moving us into commission discussion and ultimately a potential motion regarding the use permit. Are there any commissioners who would like to begin the discussion? Commissioner Farrick.
Thank you, Chair. I have a few questions for staff, so I'll direct those that way. A couple of commenters were talking about variances, and I'm not seeing variances in the staff report. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so there are 4 use permit requests. I believe the commenters may be referring to those as variances.
I see. Great. And then ADU laws have changed in recent years. Can you tell us more about the current ADU laws in California, in Menlo Park, and what's relevant here with respect to the second story over the garage that's with a 5-foot setback?
I think what's relevant is they're requesting to exceed the permitted height for detached ADU, and that's why a use permit is required.
Got it. And then what if anything does the city do with respect to construction projects intruding into residential streets? There was a comment about it's a very small street and there's already a construction project underway. And so does the city look at that, or what are the requirements that construction projects need to adhere to in order to make sure the street is safe and passable?
Yeah, during the building permit stage, that would be looked at to make sure where construction vehicles are parking and that sort of thing.
I see. Okay. And then I had a question for the applicant around the rear elevation windows. One window potentially being replaced by a clerestory instead, or 2 clerestories to continue having light. Just wanted to see what they might think about that as a potential alternative, just to maintain some of the privacy concern, the privacy of the back neighbor. Is the applicant here? We haven't heard from them.
My understanding is that the owner is here in person, as well as the project manager and someone from the architecture team. I don't know who would like to answer that question.
Good evening, commissioners, chair. My name is Anthony Ho, the designer for the project. Regarding that window at the rear for the ADU second floor, yes, it's a sleeping area, and we believe we haven't sent in the plans to the building department yet. But building department most likely will ask for a egress window, which is much lower than a clear story. Usually is about 3 foot, 3'6" high. But what we can do, I think staff has suggested that too, is to make that window sandblast so that it is kind of half transparent, so you cannot see through. You can get light, you can get egress, but you cannot intrude the privacy of our neighbor at the back. So that will be our solution for this.
I see. Thank you for that. I think that's all I have at the moment. You might come back later. Thank you.
Through the chair, I just wanted to add something to that. I did speak with the building official this morning, and he indicated since the whole ADU is basically one room, the door could serve as the required egress. So the window is not required for egress.
Thank you, Ms. Sandmeyer. Commissioner Schindler.
Thank you, Chair Eric. Looking at each of the different components of the use permits that have been requested, I will try and address them sort of in segments. As it relates to the remodel and the addition of first and for second story additions, I don't have any concerns with what's been proposed in the project. I certainly hear the questions and concerns that were expressed in public comment. But I think in the context of this district, in the R3 district, and as is documented in the staff report, the proposed project meets all the requirements for zoning for R3. I do have some questions that I posed really to myself as it related to putting a second floor on the ADU. And I went back and looked at what would be required in in other scenarios for this particular district for R3. And just to throw out some numbers, currently the garage is about 10 feet tall with about 1.5 feet setback. What would be permissible if it were a single floor ADU, according to our zoning, is that it could be up to 16 feet tall with a 4-foot setback. What would also be permissible in this zoning is if it were 35 feet tall, but it had a 15-foot setback. Additionally, and that would be if it had a density of up to, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but 13.1 dwelling units per acre, which essentially would be, in this case, because of the size of the property, it would round up to being 2 units. So if there were 2 units being developed on this property, it could be 35 feet tall with a 15-foot setback, rear setback. If this piece of property were developed to have 3 units, this could have a 40-foot, it could be up to 40 feet tall, but it would still have to have 15-foot setbacks. So thinking about all of these possible different parameters on this piece of property, to me, looking at all these different scenarios, it reemphasized that our zoning is intending to make certain trade-offs to incentivize density and adding units. That is the objective of having an R3. And we allow for greater heights, for greater density, or for smaller setbacks. Greater heights for greater density, like having it up to 35 feet or 40 feet, or smaller setbacks for adding units, which is the context of Menlo Park's entire ADU constraints. Where I get a little hung up is that this proposal is seeking a combination of those 2 benefits. It's looking for a height allowance, so exceeding the 16 feet, and a setback decrease that's associated with a single unit ADU at 16 feet. So the proposal being, right, 21.5 feet tall with a 5-foot setback. And I did the math. It's 34% taller, but it's only got 25% more setback. I'll sort of spare the numbers. I really was trying to understand the ratios and the different scenarios here. And where I come out is that for me, the combination of asking for the additional height without the requisite amount of setback for the density that we're getting, which is 1 unit and an ADU, just sort of outside of the parameters of what we were hoping for R3. So I think the zoning intended for this parcel and all the parcels adjacent would prescribe a higher density in order to get the kinds of exceptions that we're talking about. So I am concerned and welcome feedback from my fellow commissioners. But at this point, I'm concerned about and probably not supportive of the second story ADU.
Thank you, Commissioner Schindler. Vice Chair Silverstein.
I'm not quite prepared to have not necessarily formulated all of my thoughts on this, but I do want to ask staff a point of pedantry. It is my understanding, and I'm not an expert on this, that if a lot is within a half mile of a high-use transit corridor or Caltrain in which this is, then the maximum height allowed for a detached ADU would be 18 feet, not 16 feet. Is my understanding correct? And is that worth reflecting in the record?
That is correct. So the height is set by state law. It's in Government Code 6631341. And it allows 16 feet in certain cases, 18 feet if you're half a mile from a high transit corridor, and up to 21 feet in some certain specific circumstances, which I don't believe are applicable here. But yes, and the setbacks are also established by state law for ADUs. So they sort of set the baseline, and then if someone wants to go above those, they have to get discretionary approval. So 4-foot side and rear are required by state law for ADUs, and then state law sets the height limits as well. And in this case, they're going above the height limit that is set by the base.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Given that, as was just stated, 4 feet was the state law setback for ADUs, and Menlo Park law might conflict with that. Similarly, 16 feet versus 18 feet versus potentially 21 or 25 feet. And as a follow-up to Commissioner Farrick's question around how state law pertains to what is allowed, are there areas in which California state law does guarantee these types of projects be allowable that then might conflict with what Menlo Park had previously passed?
In this case, the city would have to allow the height that is in state law. If someone wants to go above the height, it would get to the Planning Commission. But if the project was 16 feet or 18 feet or whatever height is applicable, and it met the 4-foot setbacks, you would not be seeing it. It would be ministerially approved. So does that answer your question? Kind of?
Yeah, just to say back what I heard. If the 4-foot setback is not an issue, despite the fact that Menlo Park might have different setback requirements, however, the height being 21 versus 18 is what's called into question.
Correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sillen.
Thank you. Yeah, I just had a follow-up question along those lines for staff. So I just want to double check, what are we considering as the setback of the ADU? Because I know it's sort of setback from the first story of the garage. Could you just clarify that?
Yeah, so it wouldn't be the garage setbacks. It would be the setbacks that we have in the data table. And so I'm pulling that up. So for the ADU, the right side proposed is 5.2 feet. The left side is 24.3 feet. And then the rear is 5 feet.
Okay, thanks. And so if this was a follow-up question for staff, if this was an empty lot and an applicant wanted to build a detached garage, what would be the current requirements for what the setbacks would be for that?
Let me check that. So that would just be an accessory structure. So let me pull that up.
Through the chair, the staff report indicates it would be 3 feet, where 3 feet is required. I'm not sure that I can't verify that by looking at the code myself, but the staff report says the rear and right side backs are 1.4 and 1.1 feet respectively, where 3 foot side backs are required. 3 foot setbacks are required.
Yeah, through the chair, that is correct. Apologize for the delay.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. And sorry for missing that in the staff report. And am I understanding correctly that the addition of the bike storage area is also part of, would that require a use permit, or is that not part of, well, if that was the only thing the applicant was doing on the property without any of this other additions and ADU and such, would something like that require a use permit, or would that be allowed for a non-conforming garage?
Yes, that would require a use permit because the cost of the addition exceeds 50% of the replacement value of the non-conforming structure.
Okay, got it. So that's what that refers to. Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm similarly feeling conflicted. I do kind of sense that there's a lot of things happening here outside of sort of normal allowed rules. But I'm also sympathetic to adding more units to Menlo Park. So I guess at this point, I'd like to hear from more commissioners. I just had one more question about something else in the data table, which is that the, I don't know what the right phrasing is, but the driveway and parking areas seem to be over our maximum coverage. Driveways and open parking areas, square footage. Looks like our max is 20%, and this property is going from 36.7% to 31.9%. Does staff have any opinion on whether that's just sort of like a condition of this property that requires that much, or if there's any wiggle room around that? I know it has like a long driveway, for example, to go to the back, but yeah, I was hoping for more clarification on that.
Yeah, so that is an existing condition that's being improved, but I think with the existing footprints, they're not able to meet the 20%.
Okay, thanks. I don't have any more questions for now.
Commissioner Doe.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the math that Commissioner Schindler laid out. I wanted to refer to two public commenters mentioning that a previous planning commission had suggested a 10-foot setback from the rear. And it looks like the ADU is already kind of cantilevered out so that it has a 5-foot setback, which is greater than what the garage has from the rear. So through the chair, if I could ask the applicant if, I know that has design implications, structural implications, just your thoughts on either cantilevering it further or adjusting the interior space. And again, I know there's implications to the living space that's inside structure design, but it looks like that action is already kind of happening with that greater rear setback.
Yeah, to cantilever the second floor ADU further out to the front will be quite tough because these are wood constructions. Usually the cantilever right now is 4 feet. It's about 4 foot of cantilever. If we increase it maybe by 1 more foot might be okay, but anything more will be kind of not too practical. I mean, I don't think they can do it in wood structure. And we cannot really put columns in the front because of the cars coming out. The car cannot hit the post. So it's quite tough. if we move the whole thing out further. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I appreciate that there's obviously safety and structural concerns to pushing a cantilever too far. Love to hear what the other commissioners say, but I just feel like for the sake of the rear neighbors who showed the image of how close it is, again, deferring to safety most of all for whoever will be living in there, combined with either obscuring the glass or raising it, anything that can be done to create that additional housing, but respect. I mean, it is an more urban setting than some other parts of Menlo Park, but heard from the neighbors their concerns, and if there's anything that can safely be done, I would be supportive of that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Silverstein.
Okay, I think I know my thoughts in general. The whole purpose of having a planning commission is because we recognize that all of Menlo Park's municipal codes are not always going to apply directly to any given project. If it did, then we wouldn't need to provide a use permit. And almost every single meeting will identify different projects that are either on substandard lots that we know are within the spirit of our housing plans and our overall city planning, but violate the letter of the law. And so we're asked to grant these various use permits, and the same applies to various setbacks all the time. And so given the point of clarification before, this is not a specific variance. This is strictly a use permit, trying to figure out whether or not we are comfortable with granting that as a function of the acknowledgement that our municipal code can never account for the specifics of any given project. Given that I want to acknowledge that the spirit of our R3 zoning district, as has been stated, is actually to provide much more density and much more height within districts that are closer to downtown, that can provide even more broader density and vibrancy to our neighboring streets. And I know there's a project on the street that will provide some of that. But it's also not my place to mandate what any given developer develops on their lot. And so given that, while I would happily hope that we put the right incentives and structures in place for people to develop R3 style housing and developments on R3 lots, and then R2 housing on R2 lots, I can't mandate that. And we're asked to determine whether or not it's appropriate for a private owner of a private property to develop a house that they want to, obviously within the constraints. But all that said, I feel like we are asked to determine whether or not it's appropriate to say no to these requests. And I don't feel comfortable saying no to what someone wants to do on their property. And I recognize that noise has to be figured out when it comes to construction, as well as any parking issues on the street during construction. But that happens every single day in Menlo Park, and there's always construction going on, and I'm sure they'll figure it out. So I'm comfortable approving the various use permits, given that particularly the heights, and not that this is necessarily a consolation prize, but the heights could have been significantly higher, and they're not.
Thank you, Vice Chair Silverstein. I have a question for staff. Obviously, as we've discussed, this ADU is being proposed on top of an existing garage. Is there anything in California state law specific to the situation where an ADU is proposed above an existing garage? I will say, my understanding is that there is, but I would like to ask staff first before stating what I understand, because I'm not a professional.
Let me look into it.
Okay, I will say, based on my research, and it's a little bit unclear, so I state this with not full confidence. My understanding is that the prevailing interpretation, or at least an interpretation, is that an ADU built on top of an existing garage is allowed 25 feet in height, specifically because the interpretation is that it is either a new structure or it's attached to an existing dwelling, in which case the relevant code section D plus
Yes.
subpoint 4
Yeah.
allows 25 feet. And I was wondering if staff could provide any additional commentary on whether or not that applies here or how we should think about it.
We haven't looked into that for this project, but state law does allow a height of 25 feet or the height limitation in the local zoning ordinance that applies to the primary dwelling, whichever is lower for an ADU that is attached to a primary dwelling. But in this case, is the garage attached? Yeah, the garage is detached, right? So you would know the project specifics more, but that is what state law. So you're allowed to go up to 25 feet or the height limitation of the local zoning ordinance for that zone that applies to the primary dwelling, whichever is lower if the ADU is attached to the primary dwelling. In this case, it's attached to the garage, which is detached from the primary dwelling. But I will cede that to. Does that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's 6321 subsection D, like you said. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm not totally clear on the answer. Could that be repeated?
Yeah. Well, I will take the opportunity to give my interpretation. So there is part of the California code that, to my understanding, would allow a height of 25 feet or the height limitation of the zone, whichever is lower. But that in this case, that's 25 feet. So would allow a height of 25 feet for an accessory dwelling unit that is attached to a primary dwelling. There are some, based on my research, which again, I'm not a professional, but based on my research, there are several interpretations that say in the case where it is built on top of an existing garage, that is sometimes treated, again, I'm not a lawyer, but that is sometimes treated, often treated as an existing dwelling. And then what I will add from an opinion perspective, I don't know if this is in the code or not, although my understanding is that this is also an interpretation that essentially we're adding a new dwelling here. This would function as a second unit on the property, not as oftentimes we see detached ADUs that are essentially a guest house, but this would be an additional unit. And so my thinking is that essentially this is its own primary dwelling. And therefore I'm more comfortable with the 25 feet. I realize that is not specifically found in code, but given that we're dealing in gray areas here, I thought it was relevant to note that part of the existing state code.
Can I?
Commissioner Schindler and then Commissioner.
Thank you for the additional detail. I just want to be certain of my understanding of the state law that you helpfully shared with us. Those contexts apply to attached, right? On all of those contexts, it's 25 feet if the garage is attached, which presumably means, my presumption would be that the setback requirements would apply in those cases. So the 4-foot setback, which is specific.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the 4-foot setback would apply.
Yeah.
Commissioner Farrick.
Thank you. I guess this is a question for Ms. Sandemeyer. Why, I guess since it's the R3 zone, does this dwelling unit have to be considered an ADU, or can't it be unit number 2 of a multi-unit development?
Yeah, so if it was unit number 2, it would need to meet the required setbacks, which would be 15 feet on the rear and 10 on the sides.
Okay, and then I guess I'd love to ask the applicant if they've considered other forms of this project as you are considering this project, since it is R3. Had you considered a multi-unit building, or did you want a single family with an ADU?
I'm the owner of the building. The intention was, I have 2 daughters that they live in downtown Menlo Park area, 4 grandkids. So I purchased this property to move in to downtown area of Menlo Park. I don't want to build 3 units. This is R3 zone. I can go higher, more density, but that's not the intention. The intention is to remodel a single family house for myself and being close to my family in downtown area. So no, there is no intention to do high density or more units. And the ADU is, I'm getting in my golden age, and I want to have some unit over there in case in future I have some family can live or some person can live and take care of me and my wife. And the bedroom upstairs is going to be for my grandkids. They are from age of 10 days old to 7 years old. So by the time this project goes through, they are going to be freely come and go to my house. Can you believe me? This project is taking 4 years to get this point. That's, I don't know what to call it, but no, I have no intention to go to build multifamily houses, 3 buildings.
Thank you for
Three
that
units,
context. Appreciate it.
I really want to cooperate with you guys, and I want to be, I don't want to be any hard feeling between me and the neighbors. And now with this height that you are bringing it up, this, according to this plan, I'm shorter than next door and back door Scott's property. My height with the ADU is less than next property and back property.
Commissioner Baruzzi.
I haven't weighed in on this yet because I'm deeply conflicted. I find that Commissioner Schindler's logic is compelling. I'm also looking at aerial views of this neighborhood, and it's really fascinating because it's a real hodgepodge. We're talking about, these setbacks, but if you look at the setbacks, I mean, staff would have to know exactly what they are, but if you look at an aerial view of 1350, which is an apartment building, and the apartment building next to it, there's barely any space. It's probably 5 feet total. And it's an R3 district. I am also cognizant of the fact that, other recent developments in this neighborhood have added units, but at pretty high cost. So the next door neighbors, the 1340 Hoover, I think that used to be 1 home. It's now 2, but the 2 homes are selling for over $3 million each. So, when I look at a 400 square foot, single story studio style ADU with stairs to it, that looks like the kind of thing that, I might have rented as a grad student. And I don't think we're seeing enough of those kinds of developments in our city. And I'm also, a little bit, I think it's encouraging that the developer was willing to use the kind of glass that makes the privacy issues a little bit less intense. I mean, if you look at the actual back view from the home, it would seem that they would not really be able to look into the neighbor's yard at all, really, right? From their house. Am I wrong? Maybe when they're coming up and down the stairs. So I actually have to say I'm still on the proverbial fence, similar to the ADU.
Sorry, Commissioner Sillen, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I am still also feeling conflicted. I appreciate everyone's comments. I wanted to ask staff, well, first, just to double check. So it sounds like per the state, the height limit for the garage plus ADU is actually 18 feet. But Menlo Park City Code has been updated to reflect that. So we're showing 16 feet. Is that correct? Staff question? Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't sure if you heard my question. Thank you.
we need to just look into something really quick. So actually, if we could just take a couple minutes break just to chit chat about something here. That's okay.
Motion for a 5-minute recess.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion for a 5-minute recess.
Thank you.
Commissioner Baruzzi,
Yes.
Commissioner Doe,
Yes.
Commissioner Farrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Schindler,
Yes.
Commissioner Sillen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverstein.
Yes.
I'm also a yes. We will reconvene in 5 minutes at 8:13 p.m. Thank you. No. Okay. Okay, welcome back to the September 8th, 2025 Menlo Park Planning Commission meeting. We are on item F1. Staff might have needed a few more moments, but it looks like you're ready to respond. If not, that's okay. We can do other things and come back to you. Okay, sounds good. Okay, in that case, I will just say, in terms of where I am at, this is a tricky item, probably the trickiest that I've seen since I've been on Planning Commission. I appreciate the analysis that has been brought by several commissioners. Commissioner Schindler, I think, was particularly thoughtful. In general, my thinking is that this is an R3 district. This is downtown. Density is generally what we're going for. I would also like to see more density in this area than this project proposes, but we do not control what private developers do on their own land, and I do appreciate that we are adding some units here. So at this point, I'm inclined to support the project. I will just say I doubt this is any consolation at all, but to the public commenter who was the former owner of this building, I can totally see how if we approve this project, that might feel unfair. At the same time, laws are changing, the goals of the city are changing, and I don't think it's right for us to stand on decisions that were made in the past, particularly given that the goals of the city have significantly changed. The approach of the city to these types of things has changed over the past 5 or 6 years. But I do acknowledge that's a difficult thing, and that's not, issues of fairness are particularly difficult. So I slid that in there while we were waiting.
Well, I would just add, just for the discussion in general, that, as it's designed, this would not be ministerially approved, right? Because it exceeds the height. So, subsection B of 66321, you're allowed 18 feet if you're close to 1/2 mile of a high quality transit zone. And the city has to also allow an additional 2 feet in height to accommodate a roof pitch on the accessory dwelling unit that is aligned with the roof pitch of the primary dwelling unit. In this case, the garage has a flat roof, but the primary dwelling does have a pitched roof. Even if that rule is considered, the height here is still exceeding that. So, as it's designed, it would not be approved ministerially. So you can condition the CUP as you would any CUP coming before you. So you can explore various conditions. So I just wanted to say that. I was looking into the roof pitch, the issue with the primary dwelling versus a detached, because it's not entirely clear in state law if that's, is it speaking to if the ADU is attached to the primary dwelling or detached. So I just wanted to clarify some of those rules. But even then, an additional 2 feet is still under what this ADU is proposed as. Does that clarify some questions?
Thank you, and thank you to staff for the quick research on what is admittedly a muddy part of state law. Vice Chair Silverstein.
I just have a question to commissioners who discussed concerns about granting these use permits as a function of wanting more density in the R3 district in which this lies. And the hypothetical question I want to pose is the presumption that by denying these permits, you would actually get a 3-story apartment building, or is the more likely scenario that the developer changes some of the setbacks or heights, and ultimately you get what is a single family home with an ADU, just slightly different?
Commissioner Sillen.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Silverstein, that's exactly why, that's kind of what I was thinking, that what is the alternative? And that was why I wanted to confirm with staff what the height limit was. And thank you for looking into that. And so it's, my understanding that it is possible to build a 2-story structure that's 18 feet. I guess, I don't know if this is an appropriate question, but is there a world where the applicant could configure this structure in that way, or is there something about this non-conforming garage that makes it so that you have to go over 18 feet?
Right, and that's a question for staff.
Yes, that's a question for staff.
Let's see. So the existing height, it looks like, is about 9 feet 3 inches that they're adding a floor above, and that's about 9 feet tall. So I think potentially it could be, the ADU could be a little shorter. I think it is somewhat up to the applicant how they would design it. I think they could also potentially make the garage, lower the garage roof. That could be an option. So the whole structure is then lowered.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think to Commissioner Silverstein's point, my sense is that yes, the applicant could find a way to get under that height limit. They're just a couple feet over, and there's also that accommodation for the slope of the roof. I do definitely, I was looking at the housing element, and I know that as part of the housing element, we added some new regulations to R3 districts to try to encourage development. So we lifted conditional use requirement for residential use, I think, and then we tried to increase density on this particular parcel. It is, of course, a small parcel, but that doesn't seem to have incentivized what we were hoping for, but I don't think that's a reason to deny the project. I think that's a reason to maybe reconsider what we committed to in the housing element if it's not providing the right results. Yeah, I think through the chair, I would love to hear from the applicant, perhaps from a design perspective, why it's important to get those additional few feet, and what would happen if we had to go down to 18 feet of height.
The existing garage is 9'3" tall. And we try not to, because it is already existing, we try to keep the entire structure intact. One big reason is that it's a substandard garage. It's only 18 feet wide. It's not it's not a 20 by 20 garage. And therefore, we kept the structure as it is, because if we try to fuss around with that garage, we are afraid that we need to rebuild it to the standard, and therefore the impervious area is going to grow in the back of the house. Because right now, as you heard earlier, I think one of the commissioner was asking about the paving of, because right now we're already the existing is already having a lot of impervious structures on the site. So we try not to expand the garage any further. So if we need to rebuild it, practically speaking, if you have an 8-foot garage, 1-foot structure now brings to 9. And if the ADU is only 8 foot tall, which many people like 9 feet, but let's assume it's 8 feet. So 9 plus 8 is 17, plus the structure then is right at 18. So mathematically it's possible. It's just that it might trigger a lot of other things, like rebuilding the garage might need to increase the size of the garage and so on.
Thank you for that background. I appreciate it. It sounds like there's design obstacles, and also that would be a much bigger cost, having to rebuild an entire garage or trying to saw off a foot off the 2x4s or whatever that may be. Yeah, I think I appreciate, and yeah, the other thing that I was looking into was the Commissioner Schindler's comment about what would be allowed otherwise with a 15-foot setback and a 35-foot tall structure, a 40-foot tall structure. As far as like daylight plane, it seems to me that it would have even more, from the neighbor's point of view, a larger intrusion into the daylight plane because it's a much taller structure. So, you know, if another owner was to acquire this property and decide to do with it what they could go up to that 35 or 40-foot height. And granted, for the neighbor on Valparaiso, maybe 15-foot setback with a window looking into the backyard is better than 5 feet, but a shorter structure, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I think it's not a huge difference. And so given that we have heard that it is possible to meet the requirements of the state, which would basically mean that a no use permit would be required and this would be ministerial, based on what we just heard from staff and the applicant, and given that, like others have said, it's an R3 zone where we're generally hoping to get more density and more height, and given that there's an alternative world where this does get built as a much taller structure, I think I'm comfortable allowing the ADU, but I do understand that it's a tough situation for neighbors. And yeah, having, you know, someone looking in your backyard where that didn't exist before is, you know, that's a tough one. But I think given the zoning, it seems inevitable at some point.
Commissioner Schindler.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to follow up on Vice Chair Silverstein's question. For me, the sort of permutations of the R3 zoning indicate, and I'm reiterating a little bit, that the city is willing to pursue greater density in exchange for height. Height and greater density in exchange for smaller setbacks. And we are talking about granting height and setback parameters that don't match the density that that the city is aspiring to. And when we have smaller setbacks, when we have taller buildings, the trade-off is residents. So what the equation that I have in my head is, are we pursuing density, which is good for the long term, great for the long-term health of our city. And ultimately, the guiding principle of the housing element, and I think a lot of the decisions that we make as a planning commission. So if we can get the trade-off that we make to get the trade-offs are what we do to get density. And in this case, I would like to see greater density for the trade-offs that we're making. And I think the equations that we've put out there with the numbers just don't quite pan out for me. So I totally understand that there's a whole lot of different ways to interpret this. And I certainly don't mean to prescribe a particular alternative solution. I know there are a lot of creative things that have been discussed about different structures or different heights. My expertise are not in that realm. I would leave that to you to see if there are other options. But I think I'm going to stop short of supporting that component of that particular use permit.
Not as chair, just as a individual commissioner. I think that's compelling, and I admit I'm on, inclined to support it, even though I'm torn. Part of me wants to deny it and say come back with a higher density plan, but I don't necessarily. Two things. One, I don't necessarily know if that will happen, and I think better solution to that problem is to make the incentives for density more compelling. The second is that, and I don't exactly understand all the neighbors and where they are, but for me, at least, it doesn't seem like even if it got to 18 feet, that would assuage most of the concerns that we've heard tonight. And so then it becomes, for me, a little bit harder to say we're going to hold to this even in a district where we're looking for things. I think this is a pretty gray area, but at this point, I'm still inclined to support it. I think, Commissioner Schindler, I appreciate your points and in almost all the ways agree with them. Commissioner Peruzzi.
So I think that we're constantly evaluating things that are in conflict with, there's the city planning goal, which is expressed through zoning and planning. And then there's the needs of individual property owners. So just last week, we were looking at Parkline, and there are people in the city who would say that what the city really needs from the Parkline property is twice as many homes. But the property owner had a specific use case that they wanted to they have a business or a nonprofit, but they have an existing use that they're trying to maintain. And it was not in their interest to do exactly what the city wanted, what some people in the city wanted them to do with their land. And I think in my sort of jumbled mind, this is somewhat analogous. So what we heard from the property owner, who I guess also does have a parcel that he's developing on the next block, which is not for his personal use and is adding density. I think what we heard from the property owner is that this would be his personal home, which I think is different from what some of the public commenters have been saying. So I don't really, I don't want to really get into a he said, she said situation, but if somebody is intending to use this as their personal home, then is it really our place to tell them that that's not what they should be doing? That's, surely we're not making that same argument in all of the other single family home remodels that we see, which may or may not be for personal use, but that's what we're assuming. So I think that I am aligned with the chair on this one, even though I've been on the fence. I think that we're not seeing a developer who's like, I could do this, or I could do, a 3-story apartment building. That might also pencil. And I think that although the setbacks are tight, again, I'm looking at the aerial view here, and it's a real hodgepodge. There's a big commercial parking lot on the other side of the 670 Valparaiso. These two apartment buildings that are right next to each other on the corner of Valparaiso and Hoover are much tighter together. And I do feel like the issue of privacy will be a little bit more academic, given both the privacy, the window, the glass that we've been talking about, and also, as the chair mentioned, 18, 20, at that point, we're talking about a roof line, right? So I think I would maybe begrudgingly and with conflict support this, with the glass probably written in that was suggested by staff. The privacy glass or whatever we're calling that.
Vice Chair Silverstein.
If people are ready to vote or call close to discussion, then I'm happy to entertain a motion. But if people are still conflicted, one of the other things that I've been thinking about is not only have we as a city been asked and tasked to add more density in general and implement the housing element as it was previously determined, but another thing that that really hit home was the comment on how this project so far has taken 4 years to get to this point. And I don't know the details of that, and they might have been extenuating, but part of my thought process is to what extent can I, as a planning commissioner, help not only implement the macro vision of our broader housing plans, but also help be a facilitator of the micro, any individual project, and not be a reason or a catalyst why a project goes from 2 years to 4 years or from 4 years to 6 years. And I think we've all heard horror stories on how long it can take to build things within Menlo Park or anywhere, and to whatever extent I can be part of that solution, I would like to be. And with that, I'm again happy to move if people want to close discussion.
Commissioner Farrick.
Thanks. I'm ready for that. Vice Chair Silverstein, I just for, announcement's sake, since I know when we vote, we like to do that part quickly. I really do feel for the neighbors, but it's particularly the unfairness of, that family has felt that they've experienced, given the really unfortunate timing of the changing laws that have influenced laws and city goals and state goals with respect to housing. That said, as Chair Eric said, we can't really make forward decisions based on that. I feel like in this particular instance, the lot size is really small. When you look at it's not 6,000 square feet. This lot is quite small. I live on one myself. I don't think we could develop a 3-unit apartment building on my lot, like with the proper setbacks. I see that there's effort made with 5-foot setbacks for that second story, privacy maintained with obscured windows, high, especially on those both sides that impact neighbors. The neighboring home is more than 32 feet tall, at least on the side that we see in the plan set. In case you're wondering, that's on page 25 of the packet. Plan sheet A8. So with all of that in mind, I agree with Commissioner Schindler. It's not, if it's not ideal, but that said, I also don't feel like it would be fair to not let this proceed, given the clear compromises being made to try to make it work, and that this ADU is being pulled away from is meeting the second story setbacks and is a housing type that is clearly an ADU. I think we've all seen some that are maybe extensions of homes that are maybe not ADUs. So I think, as I think it was Commissioner Bruzy, you were pointing out, it's the type of housing that we do need. So all of those things in mind, we'll be supporting this project.
Okay, I don't want to cut off discussion, so if commissioners have additional points, of course, they are welcome to make them. But if not, and it seems like we're sort of circling for a close here, I would welcome a motion, just because I know we have other items on the agenda.
I move to approve the use permits as outlined in the agenda item F1.
I think the question is, would you like to add a stipulation that I think was suggested by staff for obscure glass in the rear window?
With these stipulations suggested by staff of using obscure glass in the rear window.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Seeing no further comments from commissioners, I will call the vote and just note for the record that Commissioner Doe had to leave, so I will not be asking for her vote. Commissioner Baruzzi?
Yes.
Commissioner Farrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Schindler?
No.
Commissioner Sillen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverstein?
Yes.
I am also a yes. That is 5 votes in favor, 1 no, and 1 absent. Item F1 passes. Okay, with that, we will move on to item F2. This item is regarding a use permit revision for 319 Barton Way. At this public hearing, the commission may consider and adopt a resolution to approve a use permit revision to construct first floor additions to an existing 2-story residence on a substandard lot with regard to lot width in the R1U single family urban residential zoning district. Determine this action is categorically exempt under CEQA guidelines, section 15301, class 1 exemption for existing facilities. The original use permit was granted in 2005. The project planner for this item is, I believe, Mr. Garcia. Is Mr. Garcia here? Mr. Garcia is on Zoom. Mr. Garcia, are there any staff updates to the staff report? Sorry, we cannot hear you. Sorry, we still cannot hear you. Sorry, we are still unable to hear you. We are still unable to hear, I'm sorry. So the clerk, I don't know if we have to turn the volume up. I assume the volume's up because we heard public commenters.
Yeah, we have checked and I don't think we have something on our end. So we're
Okay.
just waiting for him.
Mr. Garcia, if you're able to call in via phone, maybe. It seems like that's what you're doing. Okay, we'll give it a minute. Vice Chair Silverstein.
While we have a little bit of time, I just want to clarify that I live within 1,000 feet of this residence, and I do not plan on recusing myself for the item as I have no financial interest in the outcome.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Chair, and hello, Planning Commissioners. My name is Jake Garcia. I'm a contract planner for the City of Menlo Park. There are no changes to the staff report to report this evening. I'm available to answer any questions as is staff and the applicant team who is present in the meeting room tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. My understanding is that the applicant team is here and they are available for questions, but are not planning a presentation. If that is the case, then I will ask commissioners if commissioners have any clarifying questions for staff or the applicant. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move us to public comment on this item. Ms. Roy, could you please provide instructions regarding public comment and start the comment period for item F2?
Thank you, Chair. So once again, we are opening the public comment period for this item. If you'd like to give public comment on this item and you are attending virtually via Zoom, please click the raised hand button. For those who are calling by phone, please press *9 on your keypad. And if you're in the council chamber and like to speak, please fill out a comment card and hand it to me. At this point, I don't have any comment cards or any hand raised. If you like, we can wait a few more moments.
Okay, thank you. Assuming there are no requests to speak, I'm going to close the public comment period on item F2 and move us into commission discussion and ultimately a motion regarding the use permit revision. Would any of my fellow commissioners like to begin the discussion or discuss a motion? Commissioner Peruzzi. Sorry, Mr. Garcia, if you could mute the phone that you're calling it on.
Okay, cool. I have no issues with this project, and they've done a fair amount of outreach, and it seems to be conforming to all of the city standards. And unless I see a need to discuss it, I would go ahead and make a motion to approve.
Sorry, to clarify, is that a motion?
Yes.
We have a motion. Okay.
I'd like to second that.
Okay. Okay, and I'm seeing no requests to further discuss it, and therefore I will call the vote on item F2. Commissioner Peruzzi.
Yes.
Commissioner Farrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Schindler.
Yes.
Commissioner Sillen.
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverstein.
Did you open public comment?
I did open
Okay.
public comment.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Vice Chair Silverstein.
Yes.
I am also yes. That is 6 votes in favor with 1 absent. Item F2 passes. Okay, and given that, we will move on to item F3. Item F3 is regarding a use permit at 460 Cotton Street. And at this public hearing, the commission may consider and adopt a resolution to approve a use permit to demolish an existing single-story single-family residence and construct a new 2-story single-family residence with a basement on a substandard lot with regard to a minimum lot width in the R1S single-family suburban residential zoning district. The project also includes a use permit request for excavation within the required left and right setbacks for proposed light wells. Determine this action is categorically exempt under CEQA guidelines section 15303's class 3 exemption for new construction or conversion of small structures. The proposal includes an attached accessory dwelling unit or ADU, which is a permitted use and not subject to discretionary review. The project planner for this item is Mr. Pruder. I believe we also have the applicant team in person who will be making some verbal remarks. Mr. Pruder, are there any updates to the staff report?
Good evening, and thank you, Chair Eric, Planning Commissioners, and members of the public. Matt Pruder, Associate Planner. We have no updates to share to the staff report or for the project at this time. But to clarify, yes, the applicant team, as represented by the architect Travis Wood, along with Chris Coomer, are in attendance in City Council chambers this evening. Mr. Wood would like to make some brief opening remarks, and followed by that, we can answer any questions that you have for staff or the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pruder. Mr. Wood, please go ahead.
I'll try to keep it short. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Eric and the other members.
Oh, I'm sorry, now we can't hear you. I think
Okay.
you need to be very close.
Thank you, Chair Eric, and the other members of the Planning Commission for taking the time to review our proposal, and to staff for recommending approval of this new residence at 460 Cotton Street. As you heard, my name is Travis Wood. I'm one of the architects working on the residence and a partner at CKA here in Menlo Park.
I'm really sorry. Can we confirm that the microphone is on?
Yeah, it's just not staying up. It's all right.
Okay,
Having a little balance issue.
go ahead. Sorry.
As I said, I'm one of the architects working on the residence, partner at CKA here in Menlo Park. I'm pleased to be representing our clients, Sophie Lowe and Scott Lamming, who are longtime residents of the city, and they're eager to see their new home built on a street that they love and know well. This project comes before the commission as a result of the lot being of a substandard width. The property has a rather uncommon wedge shape and curved frontage with a power line easement at the rear, as well as a handful of mature street trees along the frontage, all which constrain the shape and placement of the home. Nonetheless, our design conforms to zoning regulations and fits comfortably within the daylight plane. Effort was made to complement the visual fabric of the neighborhood with this design. The proposed home is in a transitional style a clean aesthetic that mixes modern and traditional design paradigms, and in this case utilizes materials commonly found on other homes in the immediate area, stucco and stone veneer, presenting them within an updated form. The mass of the home has been thoughtfully crafted so as to minimize an overly large appearance. A low roof form at the front of the building breaks up the two-story mass, and the second story on the left-hand side steps back, reducing the perception of bulk from the street. The second story is also set back farther from the setbacks and daylight plane than required in an effort to respect neighbor privacy and access to available light. During the design process, the homeowners reached out to many of their closest neighbors to share with them site plans and elevations of the new home. In the process of this outreach, they were able to collect verbal and written support from many adjacent owners, including properties across Cotton Street and the adjacent street, Hermosa Way. All 12 of the neighbors that they contacted were in verbal support, including 8 neighbors who signed testimonials that are included in the application packet. We feel our design is a suitable response to the unique challenges of both site and zoning regulations and would be a beautiful addition to the neighborhood. I hope that you all feel the same way, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Before we move to public comment, do any commissioners have any clarifying questions on this item for either staff or the applicant? Okay, seeing none, I will move us to public comment for item F4. Ms. Roy, could you please provide instructions regarding public comment and start this comment period?
Thank you, Chair Eric. At this time, we are opening public comment period for this item. If you are in the council chamber and you'd like to speak, please fill out a comment card and hand it to me. And if you are attending virtually via Zoom, please click the raised hand button. And for those who are calling by phone, please press *9 on your keypad. At this point, I don't have any comment cards or see any hand raised. So we can wait for a few more moments, and then Chair, if you'd like, we can close the comment period. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to close the public comment period on item F4 and move us into commission discussion and ultimately a motion regarding the use permit. Commissioner Sillen.
Thanks. I just had a quick question for staff regarding the light wells. In the staff report, they're mentioned as encroaching into the setback, but then in the data table at the end, it doesn't mention as a non-conforming condition. So I was just wondering if that's not considered a non-conforming condition and whether that's sort of a standard thing that we allow.
Thank you for your question, Commissioner Sillen. To clarify, that feature is not considered a part of the basement and the basement's overall, extension into a setback. So that's why it stands separate from the data table and how it's entered.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Schindler.
Thank you, Chair. I think as the applicant attested, I think this complements the visual fabric of the neighborhood, and I think it meets all the requirements for our zoning. And I think I respect and appreciate the neighbor outreach, and am fully willing to move forward with supporting this project. And I'll even be so bold as to make a motion that we approve per the staff report.
I can second that.
Okay, I'm seeing no other comments from commissioners, and therefore I will call the vote on this item, which is item F3. Okay. Commissioner Baruzzi.
Yes.
Commissioner Farrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Schindler.
Yes.
Commissioner Sillen.
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverstein.
Yes.
I am also a yes. That is 6 votes in favor with 1 absent. Item F3 passes. That moves us to item F4. Item F4 is regarding a use permit at 404 Durham Street. At this public hearing, the commission may consider and adopt a resolution to approve a use permit to remodel and add second-story additions to an existing non-conforming single-story, single-family residence located on a substandard lot with regard to minimum lot width and area in the R1U or single-family urban residential zoning district. The proposed work would exceed 50% of the replacement value of the existing non-conforming structure over a 12-month period and requires approval of a use permit by the Planning Commission. The proposal would exceed 50% of the existing floor area and is considered equivalent to a new structure. The proposal includes conversion of an existing space into an accessory dwelling unit or ADU, which is a permitted use and not subject to discretionary review. Determine this action is categorically exempt under CEQA guidelines, section 15301's class 1 exemption for existing facilities. The project planner for this item is Mr. Turner. I also believe we have the applicant team here that plans to make verbal remarks. Mr. Turner, are there any updates to the staff report?
Good evening, Chair Eric and Commissioners. I do not have any updates to the staff report. I do have the owner here in person and the architect online if you have any questions, and I'm available for questions as well.
Thank you. If either the architect or the owner, whoever plans to speak, would like to go ahead with their verbal remarks, that would be great. Thank you. If the Ms. Roy, do we have verbal remarks from the architect?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Mr. Warren, please go ahead.
Yes. Yes, this is Daniel Warren with Warren Design. We've been working with the client now for a little while to develop this project. The main objective was trying to keep the bulk of the existing structure while being able to add a second story onto their home to accommodate their growing family. And one of the components that we wanted to also incorporate was an ADU, which we have incorporated on the ground level. And the other thing was, maintaining the architectural integrity of kind of other homes on the street and, complying with all the, design guidelines, setbacks, and height requirements that go with that. And also, reaching out to the neighbors and, making sure that, the design and privacy concerns, take into consideration the surrounding homes. And if there are any questions about the design or anything else, we'd be happy to take those for you.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Do any commissioners have any clarifying questions on this item for staff or the applicant? Okay, seeing none, we will move to public comment. Ms. Roy, could you please provide instructions regarding public comment and start the comment period for item F4?
Thank you, Chair. So once again, at this time, we are opening public comment for this item. If you are in the council chamber and like to speak, please fill out a comment card and hand it to me. If you are attending virtually via Zoom, please click the raised hand button. If you are calling from home, if you are calling from phone, please press *9 on your keypad. And at this point, I don't have any hand raised or any comment cards. If you'd like, we can wait for a few moments and then close the public comment period. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'm going to close public comment for this item and move us into commission discussion and ultimately a motion regarding the use permit.
Similar to some of the other projects we've seen tonight, this one seems to adhere to the city standards, and I think the staff recommendation makes sense. And seeing no cause for objection, I would move that we approve the use permit.
I'm happy to second the motion.
Okay, seeing no other requests to speak from commissioners, I'm going to call the vote on item F4. Commissioner Baruzzi,
Yes.
Commissioner Farrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Schindler,
Yes.
Commissioner Sillen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverstein.
Yes.
I will also vote yes and apologize, I guess, to the applicant that their lot is 3 feet smaller than the standard lot area. That is 6 votes in favor with 1 absent. That item passes. I know, but okay, that moves us to the next item, which is F5. This item is with regards to a use permit at 1005 Olive Street. At this public hearing, the commission may consider and adopt a resolution to approve a use permit to construct exterior and interior modifications and additions to an existing non-conforming single-story residence in the R1S single-family suburban residential zoning district. The proposed work would exceed 75% of the replacement value of the existing structure, which requires a use permit. Determine this action is categorically exempt under CEQA guidelines section 15301's class 1 exemption for existing facilities. The project planner for this item is Mr. Chan. We also have a member of the applicant team in person to answer any questions. Mr. Chan, are there any updates to the staff report?
Thank you, Chair. There are no updates to the staff report.
Okay, do commissioners have any clarifying questions for staff or the applicant? In that case, Ms. Roy, could you please provide instructions regarding public comment and start the public comment period for item F5?
Thank you, Chair Eric. At this time, we are opening public comment period for the item. If you are in the council chamber and like to speak, please fill out a comment card and hand it to me. And if you are attending virtually via Zoom, please click the raised hand button. If you are calling by phone, please press star 9 on your keypad. At this moment, I don't have any hand raised or any comment cards. We can wait for a few moments before we can close the public comment period. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'm going to close the public comment period for item F5 and move us into commission discussion and ultimately a motion regarding the use permit. Vice Chair Silverstein.
So the reason why this property has to come before the Planning Commission is because its front setback is below the minimum requirement. It's my impression and understanding that the spirit of our front setbacks presuppose that the property is street facing, and there are potentially reasons why you would want to have your properties set back from the street. However, as a function of this lot being already recessed from the street, and having a long driveway, which isn't necessarily part of their property line, I acknowledge that this doesn't necessarily adhere with the letter of the law, but certainly within the spirit of our front setback requirements. Not only am I comfortable making a motion at this time, but I would also request that staff make a note of this as an example of something to potentially review if and when Planning Commission ever discusses ordinance amendments, to see whether or not it's worth changing that, particularly as a function of potentially more lot subdivisions that we may see in the future as a function of SB 9. Thank you.
I want to echo Vice Chair Silverstein's point and emphasize to staff that I think this is a good thing to revisit as part of any ordinance amendments.
And with that, I move to approve the use permit.
Second.
Okay, I'm going to call the vote. Commissioner Baruzzi,
Yes.
Commissioner Farrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Schindler,
Yes.
Commissioner Sillen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverstein.
Yes.
I am also a yes. That is 6 votes in favor with 1 absent. That item passes. We will now move on to item F6, which is with regards to a use permit revision at 323 Pope Street. At this public hearing, the commission may consider and adopt a resolution to approve a use permit revision to construct first floor exterior and interior modifications to an existing 2-story residence on a substandard lot with regards to minimum lot width in the R1U single family urban residential zoning district. The original use permit was granted in 2007. Determine this action is categorically exempt under CEQA guidelines section 15301's class 1 exemption for existing facilities. Mr. Chan, I believe you are the project planner also for this item, and we have a member of the applicant team here in person to answer questions. Mr. Chan, are there any updates to the staff report?
Thank you, Chair Eric. There are no updates to the staff report.
Do any commissioners have any clarifying questions for staff or the applicant? Yes, Commissioner Sillen.
Thanks. Just a quick question about decks. I wanted to clarify whether deck counts towards any of the calculations as far as like building coverage or FAL or anything like that.
No, the deck would not count towards FAL or building coverage in this case.
Okay, thank you. No other questions.
Okay, seeing no other clarifying questions.
I do have
Oh,
one.
sorry, yes, Commissioner Farrick.
Thank you. This is a question for staff. So through the chair, is there like a statute of limitations where we wouldn't, I feel like if one property gets a use permit, how many decades later are they not having to come back for a minor modification like this just because they had a use permit at some stage in the history of its being?
Thank you for the question. I am not aware of any statute of limitations regarding what you just asked.
Interesting. So it's like a disincentive to get a use permit because it just seems like you're locking in kind of a forever needing to come back to the Planning Commission situation. So thank you for that information.
Commissioner Baruzzi.
I have a question for the staff. How much additional work does it cause for staff in terms of person hours to bring something like this to planning if it requires a use permit update as opposed to a standard process that doesn't require a planning commission approval?
Thanks for that question. I would say that the timing, the billing is highly variable. It depends on the quality of the application. In this case, the applicant was very good in the quality of their application submission. It was very fast. I would say that it moved relatively quickly through the process in comparison to other projects that, for example, some person submits an application and then there's an extensive amount of comments that they need to correct, and then they take an extended time to respond to things or don't respond to them correctly. In this case, the applicant was very cooperative and communicative. So I believe, in my opinion, that the process was fairly quick in this application.
Thank you.
Commissioner Farrick.
Could I make a motion?
Sorry, we're on clarifying
No, we can't.
questions, so you
Thank
cannot make a motion.
Dang.
But seeing no other clarifying questions from commissioners, I will ask Ms. Roy if you could please provide instructions regarding public comment and start the comment period for item F6.
Thank you, Chair Eric. So we are opening public comment period for this item now. If you'd like to give public comment on this item and you are attending virtually via Zoom, please click the raised hand button. And for those who are calling by phone, please press star 9 on your keypad. And if you are here in the council chamber, please fill out a comment card and hand it to me. At this point, I don't have any comment card or hand raised. Like before, we can wait for a few moments and then we can close the public comment period. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'm going to close the public comment period for item F6 and move us into commission discussion and ultimately a motion. Commissioner Farrick.
I'd like to make a motion to approve item F6 per the staff report.
I'm happy to second.
Seeing no other commissioner comments, I will call the vote on item F6. Commissioner Baruzzi,
Yes.
Commissioner Farrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Schindler,
Yes.
Commissioner Sillen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverstein.
I actually do have a comment as part of my vote. While I don't want to speak for anyone else, to me, it is clear that this project, again, is clearly in line with the spirit of our law and would love for staff to similarly note this as another example if we ever revisit any zoning ordinances as something that hopefully wouldn't need to come before the Planning Commission or get a use permit for such a minor change. Thank you. And I vote yes.
I would echo the comments of Vice Chair Silverstein, and I also vote yes. That is 6 votes in favor with 1 absent. That item passes. Which brings us to our final public hearing item, F7, which is regarding a use permit at 325 Sharon Park Drive, otherwise known as Safeway. At this public hearing, the commission may consider and adopt a resolution to approve a use permit for the sale of beer, wine, and distilled spirits for off-site consumption, State of California Alcoholic Beverage Control License Type 21, which is a special use requiring a use permit at an existing supermarket in the C2 or neighborhood shopping zoning district. Determine this action is categorically exempt under CEQA guidelines section 15301's class 1 exemption for existing facilities. Mr. Chan, thank you once again for being the project planner on this item. My understanding is that we also have a member of the applicant team here in person to answer questions. Mr. Chan, are there any updates to the staff report?
Thank you, Chair Eric. There are no updates to the staff report.
Okay. Do any commissioners have any clarifying questions for staff or the applicant? Ms. Roy, if you could please provide instructions regarding public comment and start the comment period for item F7.
Thank you, Chair. At this time, we are opening public comment for this item. If you are in the council chamber and you'd like to speak, please fill out a comment card and hand it to me. If you are attending virtually via Zoom, please click the raised hand button. And if you are calling by phone, please press star 9 on your keypad. At this point, I don't have any comment cards or any hand raised. So we can wait for a few more moments and then we can move forward closing the comment period. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, let's close the public comment period for item F7. And that moves us into commission discussion and ultimately a motion regarding the use permit. Commissioner Baruzzi.
So we used to call this secret Safeway because it's the Safeway that people didn't necessarily remember existed in Menlo Park. And it was a secret to me until today that they didn't have a permit, a full liquor permit. Yeah, so anyway, I have no issues with this and I would be prepared to make a motion, but I'm curious if anybody else has any comments.
I mean, yes, I do.
Commissioner Farrick.
I'm fully prepared to support this. I guess I'm just I mean, aside from the staff report, like I'm just curious how it sort of came to be now. There was a liquor store in the same shopping center that I don't know that's still there. But anyway, I'm just, if the staff can indulge me for 2 minutes with sort of a little bit of the backstory, that would be helpful. Like, how was it discovered that they didn't have this license?
Yeah, so it was discovered when the staff received a notification from the Alcoholic Beverage Control that they wanted to change their license type. At that point, a change in the sale of alcohol would require that use permit. So we did look back to see whether or not an original use permit was granted for the beer and wine sales. We could not find record of anything going back several decades. So this opportunity for this use permit is to formally have that on record.
Got it. Thank you.
I would make a motion to approve.
And I'm happy to second it.
Seeing no other requests, I will call the vote. Commissioner Baruzzi,
Yes.
Commissioner Farrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Schindler,
Yes.
Commissioner Sillen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Silverstein.
Yes.
I am also a yes. That is 6 votes in favor with 1 absent. That item passes. Before we move to informational items, I would just like to say a particular thank you to staff for getting a bunch of items on this meeting and a bunch of items on, I think, 2 meetings ago. I know it's a lot of work, and I think it's really great to see. With that, we will move to.
Could I actually?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. On that, is there, I guess I'm curious about your methodology for the order in which items appear. And I know residential projects come before commercial projects, but I wondered if there was any, we had one project that had some obvious complexities and quite a few that frankly didn't. And so I didn't know why that one was first.
Yeah, so the Hoover project originally was going to an earlier meeting, and then it was continued due to a noticing error. So because it was continued, we put it first.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, I will officially move us to item G, informational items. Ms. Sandmeyer, would anyone from staff like to provide an update on upcoming Planning Commission meetings or agendas?
Yeah, so the next meeting will be September 29th. That's actually 3 weeks away, so we haven't finalized the agenda. But so far, we have 3 single-family homes on that meeting. And then the following meeting would be October 6th. And we're still finalizing that agenda as well.
Okay, and so we'll have meetings 2 weeks in a row, the 29th and the 6th.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Are there any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Schindler.
Thank you, Chair. Could you remind me approximately when we expect to see a draft calendar for 2026?
I think usually we prepare that kind of November timeframe, or potentially early December.
Thank you.
Commissioner Farrick. Oh,
I'm okay. Thanks.
okay. Do any other commissioners want to bring up any other informational items? Okay, thank you, everyone. I will adjourn this meeting at 9:20 p.m. Yeah, but it's always here.